Greetings from NHRD Bangalore. Welcome to this podcast called People Jam. So, thanks to NHRD Bangalore who are kind of pioneering this initiative, and also our partners E6 Data and TPC who made this podcast possible. Excited to have Arun Vigneswaran with us today. Arun, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me here, and thanks a lot for that wonderful masala dosa and filter coffee before we even get started.
Oh, it was our pleasure, and thanks. Glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Arun, you are an engineer from Anna University with a master's from TISS Mumbai. You've been a software developer, also worked with TI, Texas Instruments. And your journey is pretty much otherwise split between Flipkart and what you're doing today, right? So in Flipkart, you've been a part of the growth journey, and today you're helping, I'd say, more than 100 startups with their scaling and building journey, right? It's indeed our honor and pleasure to have you with us. Arun is a part of X210X presently, and he has been pioneering, improving the workspaces across companies, right? So Arun, if I missed anything else, I invite you to walk us through, your career journey, if you will. Thanks.
No, this was a very generous introduction. Thanks for that, Sid. Maybe I'll add some nuance or some color to that. So I started as an engineer. I spent around 2 to 3 years doing that. Then I got into this part of the world. Now, I initially was at Flipkart when Flipkart was going through its 1,000 to 8,000 people journey, and that was the time when Flipkart was starting to think about how to structurally design people and org for that scale. Because until then it was being run, of course, with a lot of culture first, employee centric mindset coming from Sachin and Vinny, from the founders. But and as part of that, this team was bought in. So from that standpoint, got our inside view to designing a lot of the people processes, talent management, performance management, a bit of rewards, hiring across the company. So that's what I did over there. I also played an operating role where I was doing HR for mostly the corporate teams, biggest one being HR, which was 450 people.
Many of our startups are not yet 450.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting role. So that was my Flipkart stint. I think the good thing about Flipkart was it was a clean slate, and Flipkart's culture being that, hey, you think big, you have full autonomy, you learn, and you make mistakes, learn, and go for it. So that was my Flipkart stint, and then I joined X210X. Here my job is to work with startups to scale their culture and org. This is going to be 6 years now. We have worked with around, you mentioned 100, but we have worked with around 150 startups. Oops. Just on the org side.
Lovely.
As a company, we have worked with around 400 startups of all sizes and shapes. Early stage, growth stage, late stage. A lot of them nowadays, growth stage, late stage is where we are focusing on. India, Southeast Asia, and Saudi. These are the 3 geographies we have worked with. And if you look at sectors, again, you name it, we would have at least have some footprint, right? Fintech, EdTech, SaaS, D2C, and even some of the AI companies, which are all now, so all the incumbents are now looking to AI power their offerings, but there are also, I call them attackers in each of these spaces, who are kind of bringing a very new AI native mindset. So we are also working with some of them. That's also very interesting and exciting. So that's a bit about what I've been up to since the last 6 years. Have been particularly interesting because that gives me a ringside view to an ecosystem which is very interesting, exciting, and by default and by design is because it goes through hyper growth, up and down. Design is very interesting. So,
yeah, sometimes in startups, people say, hey, with all this learning and such a great time, do you guys get paid or do you pay to be in that ecosystem? So wonderful, delighted to hear that. So Arun, I'm really curious to hear some stories from you, right? Some business problems that were there in startups, and what was the underlying people problem, right? And how did you go about solving them? Those would hold rich insights for our listeners. Yeah, over to you.
Understand, got it. I'll maybe talk about 2-3 examples. One example is a company which went IPO successfully. So this happened a year before the company went IPO, when the founder came and said that, hey, look, I'm going IPO. I'm working with my bankers. I'm working with my legal folks. So I know what parts of my company are sorted, but the org part is something I need to really get ready and I want to invest in, right? Now, from an impact standpoint, like there are 3-4 things about org readiness, which if you don't get in place, then you might still cross the IPO line, but once you are in the public market, you are in the public market, and you are going to be then grilled. And we know that in startup ecosystem, if you see 80% of the startups which have listed in the last 4 years, they're all like trending below the listing price. They're all trending below, only 20%, and every day that kind of gets revised.
Yeah, I have friends who reach out to me and they're like, oh, I have ESOPs from a long time ago, what should I do?
Yeah. Because we track that very closely, and it's very interesting. Well, if you look at the other non-startup cohort, it's around I think 30% or 35% for below the listing price, right? But 80%. So which means fundamentally startups are been growing in a certain way, and when you hit public market looks for consistency. You give guidance, then you hit guidance. I think HDFC has been doing it for 36 quarters straight.
Yeah.
And hence they have whatever market cap they have, right? But startups inherently, I put an AOP and then I don't hit the AOP. Either I exceed the AOP or I don't hit the AOP, or sometimes I hit the AOP, but the inputs which lead to the AOP, God only knows how I hit, right? So whether I know a company which is kind of going IPO where last 2 years have hit, but whatever they planned and whatever they did to hit AOP is like totally different.
If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. Mind over matter. Yeah.
So public markets kind of reward those things. They reward from an org standpoint. They like to see a clear talent pipeline. They like to see accountability for key KPIs which are reported out there. They like to see clear ESOP plans which are linked to the operating performance of the company, not like so I think so those are things the public ready company looks at. So this company was very clear that I want to get there. So it's not like I want to cross the IPO line, but I want to prepare to be ready for the public market. So that was like the business problem statement. And they had organically grown. They had, of course, it is not like we are starting from ground zero. They are a substantially big company. So over there, going there and baselining first in terms of, so if you look at org readiness for a public market, one is just the org design itself. There are these, you have a 3-year shape you are anyway talking about. Now for that 3-year shape is the org design towards it. That is a big one. And in that, I think 2-3 things which is always true, but 2-3 things which the public market looks for is there a BAU org beyond the founders? So you would know, say a lot of places, the founder goes away, then the company stops running. So, but public markets look for that. They look for clear KPI accountability, as I was suggesting before. They look for a strong succession pipeline and a leadership pipeline. They want to ensure that there is thinking around retention of leaders beyond IPO. At least some thought process in terms of people are making wealth at IPO. Beyond that, how are you going to think about them? So on and so forth, right? And founder, biggest person. What is the stake in the game? I mean, if you see, there are a lot of founders who are heavily diluted. 1%, 2%, 3%. And then, what is your stake in the game to take the company forward? So, and what is your role going to be? It's not like as founders, you by default have to be the CEO always. So some of these things are important. So now in this company, we tackled each of these questions. And people systems, by the way, your performance management, the entire rewards philosophy, R&R, all of that being in sync. And then one is like being compliant also. Everything is being audited. You just can't make random decisions on performance and rewards. So you everything has to be streamlined. So all of these things make a part of overall the checklist of. So now for that we baselined and then we looked at what to do against each of them. I'll talk about some interesting things. Right?
Looking forward,
we did, right? And that's why I didn't also want to talk about the company because
Sure.
But one very powerful intervention was on org design was really getting into a GM structure. So it was a functional structure, but it had 2-3 different businesses, and one business was the core of the IPO story, while saying that the other business is like that growth. The other business is the revenue growth provider. This business is the EBITDA and the core business, right? So now, but they were all like split functionally, and as usual, as you would know, in functional structures, focus gets diluted, so on and so forth. So that was a big shift, which also meant that had to identify GM like leaders, so deputy CEO who has to come and do it. That was one big shift. The second big shift was also introducing some capabilities. So again, their business model was distinctive in the space they operate in. Now for that, there was just one team which is in the supply side. I won't tell more because then it becomes easier. Sure. Supply side. Now that was a distinctiveness and the core beating heart of the business. Now that team was still being run in a very ad hoc fashion, like by committee. That's not a team, it was a committee where founder will come in, etc., and then they will kind of look at supply, right? So that team then becoming like really beefing up that capability. So these 2-3 interventions, and of course a long list of other things, really help the org set up well. Second one is look at all these critical boxes and see if do we have people inside or do we need to bring people from outside. I think fortunately for them, they had a lot of people inside, but then some of them were not that ready. So ensuring that there is a plan to get them ready, that was second one. Now over there, the most interesting part was the role of the founder. Right now, the founder has been running the business, has built it through ups and downs, but the markets were more, the investors are more keen that there is somebody who is like running the BAU, right? So that conversation was very, very interesting because you could see that in principle on paper the founder was okay, but just letting go, right? With the leader who is expected to get there. So these two people were there, we were there, and that happened over 2-3 conversations, and those soft aspects playing out was very, very interesting to see. But ultimately, I think empowered founders, so ultimately we got to a good outcome, and now the person is enjoying it. I remember distinctly the founder saying one day as a remark in this conversation, "Oh, क्या strategy है? वो strategy एक दिन में बनाता है. इसके बाद मैं क्या करना है?" Right? So it's interesting that part of the conversation was very, very, very helpful. And then you're rewiring the ESOP plan, ensuring that people are making the right wealth at IPO. For their industry, their leaders made the maximum wealth, and a strong retention lever as well. All of the leaders have stayed behind. It's almost like going to be a year since they have, and they're also doing really well. One of those rare 20% startups who are doing well. Right? So all these levers, putting it in, and then seeing it play out in the public market. Because some of these were reported out to the NRC, reported it to the public, and that playing out well overall in terms of the company doing well. So I'm not saying this is the one which is powering it. Of course, there are the core business levers powering the company to what it is, but this also is playing a role, right, in terms of your critical leaders staying back, your critical roles health being really high, and your cost, whether you can look at it as revenue per employee or payroll as a percentage of the overall cost, all of that being in control. I think all of that is contributing to the company doing well in the public markets.
It's never business or people, right? So when I had this dilemma many years ago, it used to be presented in academic circles as, are you taking a business decision or a people decision? With a foregone conclusion that any business decision you take will be against people. Right, and I think the resolution to the dilemma, in my own words, used to be business through people. You figure out the people configuration, then Correct. The business will take care of itself.
Exactly.
Right, the people take care of the business finally. Any more insightful examples?
Yeah, so this is one example. The other example of impact I can think about is a company, a consumer company, around 1,000 crores in revenue, and I distinctly remember. This was around 1.5 years back, the founders coming and saying that, hey, my company has become low performance. My company used to be high performance. Now it has become low performance. It is bloated, so on and so forth. And the founders were like, can you help? Right. So it was as generic as it gets. But the founder was in pain because the founder said very clearly that I've reached this place. I am one of the few consumer brands in the startup ecosystem to reach this place. But now going forward, if you have to scale, I think that awareness came that I have to get this entire org piece in, because it seems to have somehow slowed down drastically and slowing down the business growth now. So we said, okay, fine, let's figure out what it is, and then we will work with you over a year and a half to move this. And very interesting things came from where the founder was talking about it in, of course, his language, saying, hey, people come late, people go early, people are roaming around the meetings, people seem to be just giving updates from the team, and then somebody is aggregating that update and giving, and then finally somebody at the top is aggregating everything. Nothing seems to be happening. So that guy was asking, is it fine if we take all these layers, only have the top bottom layer, the top layer? Is that okay? And also there are different schools of thought which folks also keep telling, that you keep seeing these things on Twitter X, or where one founder was recently saying, it's only me, and then I am just getting in, and then I have a core team of 20 people. So he was also inspired by those. But very interestingly, when we went in, we saw that the problem started had a very different flavor to it. Number one, the leaders were not empowered and accountable at all. So all the accountability went to the founders. So it was a middle drop, coin drop moment when we were seeing the org and we were asking, where is the accountability for your P&L materials? Everything was in the founder level. But they are all leaders who are like all highly paid and all. So that was a big one. Second one, we realized over a period of time that the founders are very misaligned. To an extent that they are not talking on areas they should be talking and taking decisions together. And that will never be like, you can never make out from outside. I don't think the investors also make out that. And that was then spreading to the leaders, and the leaders were in like silos, and they were not talking to each other. And then certain behavioral aspects were getting passed on. And then there are elements of course, like people systems were all like, in a mess, right? To an extent that the way they were thinking about solving for attendance is tracking it and making it very tailor based, right? So all of that was happening. So I think understanding this was right. So hence I think we initially put some plans saying we will look at systems, we'll look at org, we'll look at this. We went back and told that we'll start with you. Are you fine? And to their credit, they said more than happy.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was almost like we have been like waiting.
The pain had really gone to those levels, right? It's
correct.
only then that people get ready to learn. Yeah.
And they were very happy to do that. So in fact, I would say the biggest intervention over there was and I won't talk much about the intervention. We did a lot of a founder manifesto, bring them together, build trust through rituals, a manifesto, some amount of coaching. But ultimately the way I would measure it is founder trust, founder leadership trust. So much so that we have put a metric now, said out of the top 5-6 metrics on org health, one of them is founder leader trust index, founder trust index.
Lovely.
Self-assessment. And I think the biggest thing I would say was like very recently I was saying the person said definitely it has improved from low or negative to now at least I would say medium.
Lovely.
Where we are talking to each other on key decisions, etc. I think that was a one big shift. And then we also of course made shifts in the org. So there also we moved into a P&L structure. And there I think the big one said was we moved to a place where we said that the P&L owners, very aggressive PLI, ESOP based PLI. I think it will be one of the first of its kind, where we said 5% of the top line they create at a certain CM2 guardrail will go back as ESOPs for that year. So if you create 100 crore, 5 crore of ESOP you get with a bullet vesting of 1 year.
Wow, that's massive.
That's massive. But you have all the levers. I am the GM, I have all the levers, I move the needle. But the way the board was okay, you know why? Because the board was like, If you're creating 100 crore at a certain CM to EBITDA guardrail, and I'm giving a 7x 8x multiple on revenue for you,
Yeah.
that is like 800 crore of value you are creating.
Yeah.
So so then why not, like,
You're creating mini founders there.
correct, exactly. So we call them also founder like leader comp. And there are two paths. Now folks who have to come there have to take a deep cash pay cut. They will be operating at 30 lakh 40 lakhs. If you want a 1 crore 1.2 crore cash, then you will be on a normal ESOP plan, 4-year vesting, some 1x of CTC something. But if you are ready to come at 30-40 crore, then you come and do this. I think that was a big shift. So I would say here the three things, we did a lot of things. We also re-anchored people, systems and all, but the three big things are these: founder manifesto, org redesign with the PLI. That has now put them on the right track. I won't say now thing, but at least we are seeing really good signals. So one example of how org, if thought through, and also I'm a big fan of looking at some 8-9. There will always be 20 things to do, but what are those 2-3 things, and then really going and doing it in a design way. That's another example I can think of.
Awesome. Two really high impact with a lot of width there, I can make out from what you're saying, though you haven't mentioned the companies. So would you have time for one more example?
Yeah, sure. I think the other, this is a slightly different flavor to it. Now this is in a company, again a unicorn company, and this is a intervention which is relatively softer but still was very impactful. This is in the learning space. Because typically learning, there are a lot of questions around what is the impact and so on and so forth, and very rare to see structured learning initiatives in the ecosystem. But in this case, this company, it came from the founders, and the CHRO also is a strong CHRO. So they said that, look, I want to ensure that truly I want to build more than buy. I know this ecosystem has run a lot on, this was even before build became a fashion. Nowadays it has become a fashion because investors have come down heavily saying that this is how your revenue profile should be, so you just can't like keep hiring and firing.
A pyramid needs to exist, right?
Exactly. But these folks woke up even before, and they always had this thing that, look, we have very good high quality people at the grassroots. They are doing really well. I want to ensure that they grow. So that outcome came, and now they are like, I don't want any vanilla learning program, but what can be like a good format to power the journey of these folks. So I think there what really helped was one, in startup ecosystem, what we have realized is that these learning programs itself is very hard to work, because folks have the mind of their own. There's a lot of learning happening outside of anyway the companies. So a bootcamp format worked really well, making it very experiential, because whatever you get through your Gen AIs or through YouTubes, etc. Anyway, people are not going to come and get inspired by. The only thing people we saw got inspired is have an experiential session where they come and they learn a little bit more about themselves and go out. And if you can orchestrate that in a group format, we have seen that now happen in multiple places. That always works.
That's very interesting. We are rediscovering T groups and process labs, it sounds like. Yeah,
correct, exactly, right. In a startup context, I think the only two jobs we have to do is ensure that we keep a bar that no classroomish one-way communication,
no yarn sessions.
Exactly, right. And even like even we did not want to even to come bring someone who is really well known, come and tell a story, which sometimes works, right, a war story. But we said no, let us keep it truly experiential. Second one, let us keep it rooted to the startup context. We know this context well, so all the examples, all the role plays, all the psychodrama, whatever we do, we will have to do it in that milieu. That is very important. Third one was the founders have to be bought in. They have to come and announce this. In fact, in this case, one of the founders, who is a tech founder, had a very vulnerable speech at the start saying that, folks, he is one of the best, finest CTOs also in the country today. He came and said that, folks, I am someone like you. I was like you, but now I am coming to this position. These are the mistakes I made. I came. You folks also should get here, and for this you need to do. This is a boot camp to power that. think that was very helpful.
Mhm.
So these 4 design elements I think really helped. One is like, folks went and said, this is the first time in my life that there is a place, a learning program where I have come back saying I want to do more, right? Because of the experiential nature, nothing more. Experiential nature in the startup context. And I don't need to tell you about the experiential nature when you apply these tools.
These are very powerful.
Very powerful when done with the right facilitator and the right energy. Because look, these are empowered people. You just need to pull their energy and then navigate their energy in the room. If you're able to do that, you are sorted. I think there it has been impactful because now their mid-level managers and their leaders, the pipeline is becoming a lot more. So they track that build versus buy ratio. That ratio is changing.
Absolutely, which actually makes me recollect one of the businesses I helped build, which was in the edtech space. And we had to go from 2 teachers to 24 teachers to make the revenue actually come in, right? And the model was, of course, remote learning and remote teaching, and 200 students in a session. So the teacher wasn't getting into a virtual classroom. The teacher was getting into a virtual a large theater, right? So experiential approach actually worked there, because teachers were really good at the subjects, especially cognitive subjects like maths, chem, physics, and so on. Somewhere along the tumble of life, there are these blocks that come in, right? So those didn't let them be their spontaneous selves. Their sensing was low and so on.
Yeah.
A 5-day experiential lab, we ran 5 of those, and then suddenly you had teachers who are able to have remote sensing, remote empathy, screen presence, and so on. So I think I do agree with you. I think it holds a lot of promise.
Yeah, I think that needle moment was magical. Which by the way also for us was contrasting, because we started off with a very traditional approach and it failed, it bombed. So I like, when I think about those 2-3 batches, I like cringe. It was disastrous, but yeah.
Super. So while we kind of have started descending and asked the cabin crew to prepare for landing, any large takeaways from your own career, your insights? I'm sure listeners would love to hear.
Yeah. So look, my overall my large part of my experience has been in this ecosystem. I've spent around 11 years in this ecosystem, doing a mix of operating roles, and this role is more a horizontal role. The ecosystem has matured, and it's very interesting to see how things are. I think the last year was a big jolt, but and then there are a lot of naysayers then saying, oh, we told you so. But the way the ecosystem has now adapted to that, right? A lot more companies going IPO in a span of 2-3 quarters. Their P&Ls, etc., have started getting into shape. They have started getting into more sustainable growth, and that has been wonderful to see the way this entire ecosystem has been shaping. And also there are always some new sectors coming up. New, like edtech was a big one, and then now I think edtech went down, but now you see a lot of sustainable companies coming, and I've actually worked with 1 or 2 of them who are very sustainable, have always been profitable, and it's great to see now they actually getting the spotlight, right? Because they've been building that company well. And D2C again was a big one, but now again it is going through its maturity curve. Suddenly D2C brands have realized that at 1,000 crore I stagnate, or after 200 crore I am struggling to get to 500. So now the playbooks are coming in and folks are figuring out what to do. So this ecosystem that way has been a absolute delight to work in. The second one is the talent which powers the reason why this ecosystem is able to do all of this is because the talent density is quite high in the ecosystem. So hence the role of org building people becomes so much more important in the ecosystem, because they're working with talent dense people. They are in fact sometimes in a lot of places almost the make or break between the company doing well and not doing well, your initial team, so on and so forth. So that is the second kind of insight. And over there what I have seen is, I was telling this to our breakfast also, the moment the first 0 to 1 journey is almost like that core 20 people coming together, powering the startup. Some of them succeed, a lot of them don't succeed. But you get to that 0 to 1, then you've got PMF. Now, from PMF to reaching that late stage, there are 2-3 hoops to cross. Now, there, what I've seen again and again is, if the org and the people pieces are not thought through well, and is kind of let go, saying we will do it later, then it kind of comes to bite back without fail. I'm telling you, without fail, right? And at that time, it is so much harder to solve, because you're so big, it's so much harder to solve. Which means that awareness has also come in. So all the VCs at Series A, Series B say, where is your CHRO? They all come and ask, where is your CHRO? Now that is a big problem in the ecosystem.
It's a good problem to have.
Because it's, while you have talent dense orgs, but the CHRO or the HR head, however you call it, that HR person who can help the org and the founder navigate through all of these things I was talking about in those two examples, right? All of those are the typical levers you have to shape your culture, shape your org into a high performance org. Now that, first of all, some of them think you can try it at home, I can have a chief of staff, or I can do some, hire a couple of people, run it. Doesn't work. So they need this person, but this person is not easy to find in the ecosystem, because the ecosystem is new. My hypothesis on that is ecosystem is new. So hence just now the talent is getting built. If you look at the large enterprise ecosystem, you see that there's a pipeline. If you take HUL, there is a pipeline from bottom to top.
The sequoia tree.
Yeah, exactly, sequoia tree, which just doesn't fall, right? It just lives on. Same with MNCs, which have the GCCs. They all like invest in that talent and they build a strong team. That is not there in the startup ecosystem. And that one, it has to be built bottoms up. So it's new, it's just getting built, or top down. Now top down, for late stage companies, they find people who come from the Amazons of the world and come in. But with that it kind of ends. It doesn't percolate, right? So hence that is one big problem statement I am seeing, and hence I was telling you that there should be a pool of folks who are, because even fractional can be very impactful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very impactful, right? So that is one big problem statement which is there. And then I think the other insight is that now that companies are going public, there is a lot of so if you see public, we do this IPO Academy, right, where we help orgs get ready. Out of that, if you see, one is performance consistency, one is board, which also if you see falls under the ambit of like a good HR and org. Because the board, typically the NRC is almost like the vantage point of a super CHRO. Right?
True.
And then you have org. So a lot of these are about getting the org ready, board ready, your business, of course, performance consistency ready. So over there also a lot of interesting problem statements coming up, right, for folks to come in and solve. So yeah, so these are things which come to my mind.
So I guess we have traveled around 3 kilometers. We have covered 35 minutes, so that's typically the ratio. So let's
3 kilometers in
35 minutes.
average.
Yes. So let's kind of do a quick rapid fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite food?
Rice and fish curry.
Awesome. What's your favorite place to hang out in Bangalore?
My favorite places are all shifted after my son came. But now currently we really love going to there's a Smoor cafe in Whitefield where we all hang out as a family. Yeah.
Lovely. Your favorite holiday destination?
Favorite holiday destination. This is a question my wife keeps asking me. When are we going to? So as of now, it is Kadu Bizinelli HSR. I get that. But on a serious note, I really like going to any part of Kerala. So like going on road trips over there.
And one final question: what are the top 3 things that founders look for or should be looking for? Let me change the question. What should founders be looking for when they hire a CHRO?
Okay, number one, the person should be able to understand the business well. Have a business. It's not like I need to understand your business from day one, but I need to have an appreciation of business, and hence understand how do I design my people levers, use my people levers to drive that business. I think that is very, very important. The second one I would say is, and this is the hardest thing for the founder to agree on, which is whether this person can actually come and show the mirror to me, and whether this person can actually give me feedback, because I shouldn't be listening to feedback from my board. I should be listening to that before that with the CHR.
Are you getting a lead feedback or lag feedback? Right?
Exactly. Right. But because you want to be very comfortable, you weaken there, and then you get feedback from board and run around. Right. So will your CHR be able to hold that conversation and have?
Are you ready to have that conversation?
Yeah, correct. I would say that is the second big word. I would say these are the two big things. I think if these two things are there, then I think you are pretty sorted.
Any one last quick advice to youngsters in the profession?
Okay, got it. I would say that I think the reason when I was talking about insights also, there is so much to be done in the startup ecosystem. Right? And I hope this conversation also provides enough excitement for people to come and be part of this. So my advice is that come. There is a lot of things to be done, and there is a big gap in some of these spaces. So that would be my advice. Please come here.
Thank you, Arun. We wrap up this People Jam podcast episode brought to you by NHRD Bangalore and in partnership with E6 Data and TPC. It's been a wonderful experience here.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Our listeners took away a lot of learnings from whatever you said. So thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you.